Hello and welcome back to the NBA DFS Slate Breakdown for December 30th, Monday. We are back. We got a 7-game slate on both sites to break down. I am your host, Tyler Wiemann, at FlatTyler83 on DFS sites and Twitter. Now come join us at LineStar. It is only $39.99 per month, and it gets you access to all we do. All the props, all the DFS. You get it for one low price. We also have a free trial through the app stores, Android or iOS. If you've never tried us out before, download us there and you can get access to 7 days free. Now, let's jump in and check out this slate, go position by position and see what we can dig up. So, highest owned point guard is McKeekick. That could or likely changes throughout the day. He is only 4,100. He's going to start. He's going to play a lot. We got Ball and Brandon Miller doubtful. And he played 20 minutes on Saturday with those guys out. So he's going to play a lot. He's super cheap. Makes some sense to want to go there. I'm getting to a decent amount. But he is not my highest owned point guard. Jamal Murray, 8,100, 30% owned. He's 8,100 and he's been playing very well in that, 40s to 50s range for a month now. And just still too cheap. In a great spot versus the Jazz. The biggest worry here is that they just blow out the Jazz and Murray doesn't play all his minutes. But if this game stays close into the fourth, Murray is going to play all his minutes in a high-paced game, in a high-scoring game, and there's a very good chance he gets there. James Harden, 8,700, also 30% owned. I do like Harden personally more than Jamal Murray, but that's just because the ceiling is a little higher. Harden can get 60s. Murray has been more consistent in the 40s lately, or 50s, but he just doesn't have that 60-point ceiling. I like that ceiling in my GPPs, so that's why I like Harden slightly more than Murray. But really, all four of these point guards with Spencer Dinwiddie are my highest plays of the night for sure for point guard. Spencer Dinwiddie looks great, 27% owned. He's 5.2K, but the big news here, no Irving, no Doncic. Usage is going to slide to Dinwiddie. I think he's in a great spot. He's averaging 1.09 fantasy points per game as a starter, and he's in a great spot to repeat that. I wouldn't be surprised for a mid-30s, low-40 kind of point performance versus him, versus the Kings here. It's not the best spot in the world, but it's a decent one, and I'm definitely going to have some Dinwiddie. One thing I think is interesting about this game is it is a late game. But the Kings just fired a coach, so we don't totally know what they're going to do, what changes they may try and make. But it is an interesting spot to kind of look at. Now that it's been a few days since the coach is gone, more likely, that some changes happen. We did see that De'Aaron Fox finally seemed to be De'Aaron Fox last game with the coaching change. So we'll see what happens there. All right, now some pivots. We got Chris Dunn, 4,800. He played big-time minutes, but that was with Porter out. So not sure if Porter is going to play today or not. I believe he is. And if so, he probably comes down to that 25, 27-minute range. I don't mind him at that, but I think it does take some ceiling away from him, which, I don't love. That is my issue with Chris Dunn. And I think there's enough value out there. You don't really need to go to Dunn, but don't mind him. Jalen Brunson, 8,600. There is no better matchup in the league than Wizards versus point guard. Jordan Poole is just allergic to defense, and the Wizards have allowed more 50-point games. 50-point real point games than any other team in the league. You got to like Brunson here. He just put up 55 versus them. However, he is questionable. If they sit him, it just bumps up all the other guys a ton. And then Malik Monk, 6,600. He played 33 minutes versus the Lakers last game. He's been struggling a little bit over the last week and a half, 2 weeks or so, but he still has that 50-point ceiling, and at 6,600, I got to take some shots on that when it's versus a Dallas team that really isn't that good, especially without Irving, and they're going to be able to put some points on the board. Point guard on DraftKings, high owned, we got McKee, we got Russell Westbrook, 23% owned, Spencer Dinwiddie, Jamal Murray. Westbrook, 6,300. Look, there is no Aaron Gordon again, so there is the chance that Westbrook starts again. I actually like him more coming off the bench, though, because his usage will be higher. And coming off the bench, he's still had games where he's getting 30-plus minutes. It's just that he has more time without Jokic or Murray on the court, which just increases that usage so much. So I like Westbrook. Personally, I want him to be coming off the bench when, the rest of the DFS field is probably jumping off him. Spencer we covered. Jamal Murray we covered. So let's get over to shooting guard on FanDuel. We got McKee, we got Josh Green. Going over Josh Green here. He's 4,200. He played 39 minutes the other day. The Hornets are insanely hurt. Look, minutes are probably going to be there, but this guy has been allergic to fantasy points. I see the path of why people want to go there, but if he is high owned, I'm going to just jump off. I mean, he's averaging 0.39 fantasy point per minute over his last 5, 0.59 over the last 20. So, I mean, we need this guy to play 38, 40 minutes to really have a good chance at hitting value. And as it is, he doesn't have a great chance of 30-plus anyways, so I just have a hard time wanting to go there at high ownership. Jamal Murray, 30% owned, 8,100, covered him. Klay Thompson, 5,600, 21% owned versus the Kings. Dallas has got to get some scoring and shooting from somewhere, and the guy has been firing them up lately, so a little bit of interest here. Just not a ton. I think most likely outcome for him is 5x, maybe 6, and that's just not going to get it done at high ownership. Paul George, 7,800, little interested there. Seth Curry, 3,600. He probably starts, but he probably doesn't play enough minutes for it to matter. Now pivot time. Let's go Norm Powell, 7,100, 15% owned. This guy has just been absolutely on fire all season long. There's a huge ceiling, and it's a great spot for small forwards. Pelicans, 30th versus the small forward, allowing a ton of points. And that's what Powell does. He's averaging 28 points a game over the last 5 and playing big-time minutes. Look, 40, 37, 42, 38. If he's getting that type of minutes in this kind of spot, he's going to crush. The price is getting up there where I'm starting to consider getting off him a little, but at this point, I still got to stay with him. Mikal Bridges, 6,400. He has been a lock for mid-30s, and he's 6,400, but in a very, very good spot here. I think it's, a safe 5x with a chance of 7, 8x at this price. So you got to be a little interested in Mikal Bridges in my mind. Chris Dunn we covered. Malik Monk we covered. Let's get over to DraftKings. Jamal Murray, Chris Dunn, Julian Strawther. Strawther's 3,400. He's literally just popping up in ownership because he's cheap. My guess right now is optimizers are just kind of throwing him in because, there wasn't a ton of value early. I expect this ownership to come in way lower. I wouldn't play him, but to each their own. Klay Thompson covered. Let's go over to small forward on FanDuel. Miles Bridges, 39% owned. I'm going to have an uncomfortable amount of Miles Bridges, I think. I may come much higher than 39% on him. We've seen this story in years before when everybody else is hurt from the Hornets that it becomes the Miles Bridges show and he has a huge ceiling. And that's exactly what's happened the last 2 games. And his price hasn't really came up, and he's in a good spot versus the Bulls. So give me all the Miles Bridges. I'm fine, eating that chalk. OG Anunoby, It's versus the Wizards, so you need to consider I'm going elsewhere than him, but I don't mind it. Solyan, he probably plays some minutes coming off the bench, and if he's had upper 20s, low 30s games, so it's just a big thing is does he get the minutes? And not totally sure. Pivot wise, I got to talk about Lauri Markkanen. So it is kind of a tale of two seasons for Markkanen. If you look at his numbers without John Collins over the last 2 years, he's at 1.16 fantasy points per minute or something. If you look at it this year, he's at like 1 fantasy point per minute. Now that's a giant difference when it comes down to this game, but if you look at the small sample size of the last 5, which John Collins has missed 3 games, he's at 1.15 fantasy points per minute. So I think we're seeing a little bit more of last year's Markkanen coming around right now, and the shots have finally been there. Look, he didn't score great versus Philly, but he took 21 shots. This is what we want to see. We want to see him firing shots up again, and he's doing it. I am absolutely fine to go back to Markkanen. I'm going to have a decent amount of him. I think there's a big-time ceiling. And without John Collins, there's more likelihood of him getting to like a 36-minute game than staying at like 32. Small forward on DraftKings. We got Andrew Wiggins, 5,400. Dude's been playing well. We've seen mid-20s, and he's in a spot that they're going to need everything from him versus the Cavs to have a chance. The issue is he has struggled versus the Cavs a little bit. Going back to last year, he didn't do good. 2022, he put up a score that we'd be okay with, but it's not winning us anything. You got to go all the way back to 2020 when it's a completely different Cavs team for him to really put up a score that we want. So that's my issue here. I think it's a tough draw for him, but at a 5,400, he is at least interesting. He's had a ceiling there to make it worthwhile. Power forward on FanDuel, we got Miles Bridges. Talked about him. Domantas Sabonis, 9,500. 29% owned. Look, he is more likely than anybody to hit 50 or 60 pretty much. Almost anybody on the slate except for like a Jokic. So I got to consider him, but I do think he is a little bit overpriced here. And the reason I say that is that he is a consistent, say, high 40s, low 50s, but we don't get the many 60, 70-point games, and that's what we really need. He's a guy that I would like much more in cash than I would in GPPs. With that being said, I'm still going to have some, but I'm not going super heavy on him. Pivot times, we talked about Markkanen. PJ Washington, there's no Doncic, no Irving. We've seen him go on runs where he really gets it going, where he can get 50s and 40s, and that kind of ceiling at 6,600 is just hard to find. So I'm absolutely in on some PJ Washington, although it hasn't been hitting the last few days that I've been on him. Trace Jackson Davis, guy's finally playing well and finally getting a couple extra minutes. 26, 23, 26, 31, 23. He gets 23 plus minutes, and he usually does well. They're going to need some big men. I do worry a little bit that they may go to Looney in this spot, but he's been almost better off the bench from like a point per dollar aspect, that as long as he gets the minutes, he's fine, and I'm fine getting some TJD for sure. Power forward on DraftKings. Miles Bridges, Precious Achiuwa, and Andrew Wiggins. Achiuwa is only 3,600 and averaging 20 minutes a game. There's some games where he gets it going on the bench, some that he doesn't. I don't mind going here, but I mean, he has a 28 and a 24 coming off the bench as his 2 highs. Not having that isn't going to kill you. So if he's going high owned, I think I could find that elsewhere without having that ownership, so I probably would. It's not a spot that I really love chalk going. And center on FanDuel, we got Sabonis, we got Jokic. I absolutely love Jokic. He's at like 0.81 fantasy points per minute without Aaron Gordon on the court. There's no Aaron Gordon. The only thing that's kept him from giant games lately is that Jamal Murray's been carrying his weight. But it can easily cycle back to Jokic, and Jokic can just absolutely crush. The one other thing is that Kessler is a decent center, gets steals, blocks, rebounds, things that can really add up in fantasy points. And if he's getting them, Jokic, it's a little harder for Jokic to get those things. So I can see the reason to fade him, but I do love me some Jokic, and I don't mind some Sabonis. Also, very interested in Zubac. Zubac has been crushing. Zubac has been getting big minutes. When he gets big minutes, he does very well, and he's in a great spot versus the Pelicans, who really are pretty soft inside, and they're 27th overall versus center. Vooch versus the Hornets makes a ton of sense to me. Guy has been insane all season long. 8K for 50 points sounds like a decent bet, but I do prefer Cat at 9,600. He's very similar to Sabonis, but I believe there is more ceiling potential or more 60-point plus potential in Cat than Sabonis. He just gets there more often. Now, there is much more lower floor, but in GPP, it doesn't matter. We're playing for the ceiling. We're playing to win. We need that ceiling outcome, and this is a great matchup for Cat. So give me some Cat, and let's roll with that. Trace Jackson Davis, we have talked about. And, yeah, moving over to center on DraftKings. Mark Williams, 28% owned. This dude has been producing big time. 1.42 fantasy points per minute over his last 5 starts, 1.47 over the last 20. Very good fantasy per minute wise. The issue is his minutes are very, very capped right now. He played 26 versus Washington, but then 22 against the Thunder. Most likely, he is going to be right around 22 minutes. Severely limits his ceiling, but the projection around 30 makes a ton of sense for me. So I don't mind a little bit. Just temper your expectations because the likelihood of 40 plus isn't all that likely. I mean, he's already been producing at an incredible rate, and, you know, they're being slow with bringing on his minutes. So I don't think it's super likely he goes back to 26. If he goes to 26, 28, 40 is very much in there, but I just don't think that's that likely. And that'll do it for us today, guys. We will be back tomorrow with more. Good luck. Let's make some money. Peace.